Hey guys, what is up? It is SSD Middleman here with GuidesForUsAll, and today we're going to be checking out all of the daggers in Dark Souls 2. Click on the screen if you'd like to skip to a certain one, and let's get started with the default dagger. If you start as either the Sorcerer or the Explorer, you will start with this weapon. However, if you do not, in things betwixt, the first fog gate, follow that path, and you will find a corpse with the dagger on it. Now, obviously, this is just the basic dagger. It's not going to be too amazing. At rank 10, you're going to be doing 115 base damage with an E scaling in strength and an A scaling in dexterity. Now, the beautiful thing about a lot of these daggers is that the riposte and backstab damage is very high. Even this weapon, and like a not very good level, you can hit some nice backstab damage. So if you manage to parry an enemy, it might be a good idea to switch to a dagger for some nice damage. Now, of course, that depends on your stats, if you have the daggers ranked up, depending on which dagger you're using. And to be honest, I'm really not sure which dagger is best for riposting and backstabbing, but they all seem to do pretty well in most of the battles I encountered. Now, like I said, it has an A scaling dexterity, so the higher your dexterity, the more damage you're going to be doing. All the daggers deal pretty low base damage. This one does 115, but as you'll notice, they swing very fast. So if you infuse them with like some resin, and you just get that extra damage, just the base damage, don't enchant them, or don't infuse them with a stone like bleed or whatever, because that'll lower the base damage. However, if you just put like flame weapon or sunlight blade or just the resins, it'll give that straight up base damage increase, which will make the daggers do a lot more damage considering the fact that they swing so fast. Anyways, that's all I really have to say about the daggers in general. Let's move on to the Royal Dirk, which you can get from Chancellor Welliger after you defeat the giant lord boss. Just go up to him, talk to him, he will give you this and the Espada Repair Ax, which is actually kind of fun to dual wield with this weapon as a side note. Anyways, use Twinkling Titanite to upgrade this, and at +5 you're going to be doing 150 base damage with a D scaling in strength and a B scaling in dexterity. Now, something very interesting about this weapon is the blade is longer than the other daggers, making it a lot easier to hit enemies with this. You might not notice it just looking at the weapon, but when you start using it, you will see that it has a much longer distance than the other daggers. And it's pretty fun to use, especially since people might be a little confused. They see you have a dagger, but you can hit them from a pretty long distance. And of course, the 150 base damage with the B scaling and dexterity makes the damage not too shabby on this weapon, and it's probably one of my favorite daggers just because of that increased distance. A lot of fun to use, very unique. Now moving on to the Black Flamestone Dagger, which you can get from Chancellor Welliger. Again, just buy it from him, or if you pre-order the game or have the Black Armor Edition, you will start off with this weapon. Now at +10, it will be doing 140 base damage with a C scaling in strength and a D scaling in dexterity, which might not sound too great, but this weapon actually does quite a lot of damage, the highest of any of the daggers, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it does. And like the other daggers, if you use an elemental infusion or some resins, that will greatly make it even more powerful due to the fact that it swings fast and it has low-ish damage compared to other weapons. This dagger, like the Royal Dirk, is also very long, so you'll have quite a lot of distance compared to the other daggers, but unfortunately it does consume a lot more stamina than the other daggers, so you will not be able to hit the enemies for those huge combos like you would be with the regular dagger. I think I can swing like 10 times before I run out of stamina, which is just crazy, especially with enemies in the single player campaign that stun lock easily with like 0 poise. You just keep hitting them with the dagger over and over again and they're dead before you know it. But this weapon is a lot of fun to use. It looks really cool. It kind of looks like a lightning bolt coming out of a hilt, although you can kind of see the dagger through it just a little bit. And the poise break on this really isn't fantastic, but it is still a fun weapon to use, and I recommend giving it a shot. And now moving on to the Parrying Dagger, which you can get in the Lost Bastille. Now just follow where I go in the video. You're going to have to break down these wooden boards, which you might have missed and not thought that it was another entrance, but from where you fight those dogs, you'll need to go through the wooden boards and follow the path that I go through. You will need the Antiquated Key, which you will also get in the Lost Bastille. It is in the same chest that you get the Silver Covetous Serpent Ring in, so just go to that chest, open it up, get the Antiquated Key, follow the path I go, and you will find a room with 3 chests, and in the chest I open, you will find the Parrying Dagger. Now +10, this will be doing 80 base damage with an E scaling in strength and an A scaling in dexterity. Whew, not much damage. Although, as you can see from the name of the dagger, it is the Parrying Dagger. So, after a successful parry, you will execute a guard break critical instead of a riposte critical, which will make you do even more damage to them. So if you use this thing to parry properly, and you hit them before they fall to the ground, you'll do the guard break critical. So, that'll do more damage. I'm not very good at doing that. Honestly, it feels so weird to parry with the daggers as opposed to a shield, even though the timing is pretty similar. It's just, I don't know. It's just awkward for me. That's just me. Anyways, not much to say about this weapon. It has really low base damage, but that guard break critical that you can inflict with it definitely helps a lot. And now moving on to the Bandits Knife, which you can find in the Huntsman's Copse. Before you get to the Bridge Approach Bonfire, you'll have to go through a building that will have a big circle pit in the ground. Not a circle pit. It'll have a pit that is a circle in the ground. Near the pit, there is a corpse that holds the Bandit's Knife on it. Now, when you upgrade this bad boy to plus 10, you'll be doing 130 base damage with a C scaling in Strength, no scaling in Dexterity, which is a bit weird for daggers, and 100 bleed damage. Now, of course, you can infuse it with bleed, wear the Crest of Blood, the Shadow Gauntlets, whatever, to make the bleed build up even higher, and that's awesome in PvP when you have like an unarmored opponent that you can bleed very quickly, because they will not be feeling too good while they're bleeding, as obviously you lose a lot of stamina when you bleed and stuff like that. This also has the highest critical damage of all the daggers, even higher than the Manikin Knife, which we haven't talked about yet, but that also has very high critical damage. And of course, when you infuse it with bleed, it actually doesn't lose too much damage. When you infuse it with bleed, it goes down to 124 from 130. So I highly recommend buffing up that bleed damage on this guy and going for a bleed build with it. Anyways, moving on to Mytha's Bent Blade, which you obviously get by trading the Soul of Mytha to the Strait of Elaphis. And you upgrade this bad boy with Petrified Dragon Bone. At plus 5, you'll be doing 100 base damage with 100 damage in Poison and a B scaling in Dexterity. Now, obviously, 100 base damage, not that great, but 100 poison damage, not that bad. If you wear the Sanctum Soldier Gauntlets, the Crest of the Rat, even could infuse it with poison to make it even higher. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, this is not a weapon you can infuse. I'm sorry. Scratch that! If you wear the Sanctum Soldier Gauntlets and the Crest of the Rat, you will be doing a buttload of poison damage, which is awesome. Especially if you get 2 of these bad boys, you can power stance them and just become a poison master. Of course, you could also put like Toxic Mist on the enemy if you have Pyromancy as well. Just makes it interesting. I love poison builds because it's kind of hard to get that poison build up on a player, but it's pretty easy to build up poison on the PvE enemies, especially those giants in the man, I'm just out of it today. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, moving on to the Shadow Dagger, which you can get from Suspicious Shadows, which only appear in the Flexile Sentry Arena in New Game Plus and beyond. In Scholar of the First Sin, they also drop from the Suspicious Shadows, but you can find them in a lot more locations throughout the game. Now, if you want to farm this thing really efficiently, go into the boss area with a Flexile Sentry, kill the 2 guys, check their drops. If you didn't get what you wanted, quit the game. Just quit the game, and when you load back in, you'll be outside the Flexile Sentry boss area. You can go back in, and the enemies will be there. They will spawn indefinitely this way, because when you go to fight a boss, it does not save during the boss fight, because then you could just leave and come back to the boss fight, and it would just be really weird. Anyways, at plus 10, you'll be doing 120 base damage with a B scaling in Strength and a D scaling in Dexterity. Another weird dagger because it's more Strength based, even though the requirements to use it are 4 Strength and 16 Dexterity. Just another weird weapon, but since it is strength-based, it's great for people who have strength-based characters, since it weighs so little since it's a dagger, and you can use it to just kind of punish those backstab fishes, because if you've ever used a strength build, you will know. All people do against you is wait for you to swing your big heavy weapon, then try to run around and backstab you, and it's a little annoying sometimes, but this is a great counter to it. You just roll out of the way, whip out that dagger, and since you can swing daggers so quickly, obviously, you'll be able to counter those stupid backstab fishers. But there's not really much to say about this weapon. It's not incredible, but the damage you can put out with this is actually not too shabby. Anyways, moving on to the Thief Dagger. You can get this by rogue enemies, or by killing rogue enemies in the Huntsman's Copse. I recommend going from the 3rd bonfire across the bridge and just following this path and killing every bandit in your way. Eventually, you'll get this weapon drop. Anyways, at plus 10, you'll be doing 145 base damage with an E scaling in Strength. This is a really low tier dagger. This is probably one of the worst ones, in my opinion. The only real way to make it decent is maybe to infuse it with Mundane, and then it will be okay. But really, I just don't think it's that amazing. There's just not much here for it, and that's just my opinion. The wiki says that it's good for infusing, but I've never tried it out, so I can't give you my honest opinion on that. But just letting you know that's what it says. I didn't find this weapon to be all too great. Anyways, moving on to the Broken Thief Sword, which you can get in the little tunnel that connects Majula to Hyde's Tower of Flame. After you open the door, drop down, and there will be a treasure on your left. Now, this weapon does say Broken Thief Sword, but it is indeed classified as a dagger in the game. Just one of those weird technicalities that Dark Souls loves to offer us. At plus 10, you'll be doing 120 base damage with a C scaling and strength. And like I said with the last weapon, you probably want to throw Mundane on this if you have the stats for it. It's pretty similar to the attack style of a dagger, even though it says sword, of course. You could basically consider this the dagger of the broken straight sword of the daggers. Yeah, it's basically the same thing, except it's a dagger. I don't really know what else to say about this. It's not that great unless you have the stats to use Mundane on it. Anyways, moving on to the Manikin Knife. Very cool weapon that drops only from mannequins that use it in Earthen Peak, which is not very many mannequins. There's one right outside the door of the second bonfire in Earthen Peak. I believe it's the second. Yeah, the second? Yeah, it is. Just walk out there, kill that one guy, turn around, go to the bonfire, walk out there, kill that one guy. Now, at plus 10, you'll be doing 105 base damage with a D scaling in strength and a C scaling in dexterity with 80 bleed damage as well. Obviously, you're going to want to put on all those things that buff your bleed to make this guy even more powerful. And most weapons, you know, they lose a bunch of physical damage when infused with an effect, but the mannequin weapons don't lose that much physical damage upon infusion. Obviously, that means you're going to want to infuse this guy with bleed to buff that bleed damage up to 124. You don't lose that much damage, you'll be at 88 base damage, but the infusion isn't as powerful as with some of the other weapons, which is a little odd. These mannequin weapons are always weird, but this weapon right here is a ton of fun to use. That's just my opinion, but I really like it, and it is great for cosplay souls. Now on to the DLC daggers. Let's start off with the Umbral Dagger, which you can get by killing Fume Sorcerers in the Crown of the Old Iron King DLC. Now you upgrade this with Twinkling Titanite, and at plus 5 you'll be doing 70 base damage. Ugh. Oh, it's terrible. But with an S scaling in dexterity, that's what I'm talking about. That is amazing. S scaling is beautiful. Anyways, this is obviously a dexterity designed dagger. You do not want to have any strength, you just want a butt ton of dexterity. This weapon cannot be infused, and it says that it's got, you know, it's built just for backstabs. It says in the description of the weapon, crafted to facilitate assassinations with a focused backstab. But really, I found that this doesn't do as much backstab damage as some of the other daggers. That's just me, in my experience. Maybe I'm just crazy. Maybe the people I tried backstabbing had more armor than other people. But in my opinion, this actually didn't do as much backstab damage as the Shadow Dagger and, you know, maybe Mythos Bent Blade. No, Mythos Bent Blade. That's not what I'm thinking of. Anyways, this weapon is fun to use, and it looks really sleek and cool, but I just didn't find it to be that great, even though it has that beautiful S scaling. Not one of my favorites. So let's move on to the Blue Dagger, which you also get from killing Fume Sorcerers in the Crown of the Old Iron King DLC. These both drop from the same guy, making it possibly a very pain in the butt to farm them. I got them very quickly, which is very fortunate. I thought these weapons were going to take me forever to get. Now this weapon at plus 5 will give you 100 base damage with an E scaling in strength and a C scaling in dexterity. Even less damage, oh boy. But this weapon is sort of interesting, I suppose, because it actually reduces your elemental defenses by 200 when you have it equipped as your active weapon. Yeah, but what this weapon does as well is makes your spells stronger. Whoa! I mean, it's just one of those really weird things. I guess if you wielded this in your main hand, and your Catalyst, or something like that in your other hand, and you casted your spells, they'll be doing more damage. It's about 5% increase in damage, but the minus 200 of your elemental defenses, it's really, really risky. And if you're playing this in PvP, you come across another guy using magic, you are going to be in a pretty tight spot. But just an interesting weapon overall. Obviously, I don't recommend really using it as an actual dagger weapon, as the damage is pretty weak and it has no real special effects other than the sorcery improvement. But yeah, that's just my opinion, guys. If you have any other ways to use the Blue Dagger, of course, always leave a comment down below telling me I'm stupid and I made a mistake, because daggers aren't really my area of specialty. And I'm sorry if this video seems a little troll in comparison to the other ones, but I'm not a huge fan of most of the daggers. Anyways, moving on to the last but not least, the Retainer's Short Sword, which you can get by killing the Retainer Rogues in the Crown of the Ivory King DLC. These are the lady guy things that wear those robes and sit down with that dagger in their hands waiting for you to walk by so they can try and backstab you. I read that the drop rate was like 5 or 10%, but I had to kill a ton of these guys to get anything to drop. But once you get it, you will upgrade it to +10, and you'll be doing 70 base damage with 90 sorcery damage with an E-scaling in strength and dexterity and a D-scaling in sorcery. Whew, that's a mouthful. And again, even though it's called the Retainer's Short Sword, it is a dagger. Don't be confused. I know they keep doing this, but it's weird. Now, like every weapon that has a little bit of magic damage, you're going to need to have an intelligence level high. Well, not high, but there is an intelligence requirement to wield this weapon. 15 intelligence, 15 dexterity, and 11 strength, meaning that if you don't have any points in intelligence, you're actually not even going to be able to use this dagger. But in Scholar of the First Sin, the intelligence requirement is actually 19 as opposed to 15. An even bigger hit on people who don't wish to use any sorcery. Just another weird weapon. It's only got 30 durability, making it even more of kind of a drawback weapon. Not the best. It's interesting. You could always cosplay with it, dress up as the Retainer Rogues, which is cool. I don't see it enough, but I would love to see somebody dressed up as a Retainer Rogue trying to stab me with a dagger. Maybe even hiding and only coming out when they can get a backstab on me. Boom, patent that idea. Throw it in the copyright. I came up with it, except I'm sure thousands of other people have already come up with it. Anyways, thanks for watching the video, guys. If you enjoyed, please leave a like rating down below and subscribe to see some more videos in the future, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.